So welcome everybody. Today's webinar is all about, are you ready for corporate partnerships? Georgia and I are going to run through the elements of the two levels of readiness needed for corporate partnership success. There's organizational readiness and then there's partner readiness. And you know, if you're not organizationally ready, it's really not a good idea to then pursue a corporate partnership strategy, because you can put all of the things in place that we'll mention later on, but it's not necessarily going to give you a result if you're not organizationally ready. Today we have two excellent guests joining us. We have Caitlin, who is the CEO of Soundfair, and we have Mandy from Save the Children. She's the Partnerships and Philanthropy Manager. So thank you guys. They know a lot about readiness, so I invited them to join us today, and they'll be chipping in their experiences as we go. And also I'd like to welcome my co-founder and communications whiz, Georgia. Where are you, G?
Hello.
Hello, there she is. And she's just come back from a lovely holiday, so she's in a really sunny mood, which is really nice. So welcome everybody. We'll probably go for about 35-40 minutes today. You're most welcome to ask a question as we go. You can either put it through the chat box or just put your hand up. But we will have plenty of time for questions at the end as well. But let's, you know, we've got a fairly small group today, which is lovely. It means we can be quite conversational. So what did we promise you? We promised you that we would cover readiness, the two levels of readiness: organizational readiness, which will determine success from failure, why a corporate partner is more lucrative than a sponsor, and we're also going to have a live Q&A. We will also touch on where is the best investment of your time that will make the most difference. And also we're going to provide you with some resources that you can share with your board, because at the end of the day, organizational readiness includes board understanding and knowledge. And yes, you will receive the slides as well as some additional resources from Georgia after the session. So a little bit about me, for those of you who may not have met me before. I've spent 28 years building over 52 partnerships between companies and charities. I work about 60% on the corporate side through my company Cabell & Co, and I've built partnerships for people like Disney, Vodafone, Mondelez, and Seek, which is a volunteer platform which is now in its 23rd year. So I'm all about long-term, mutually beneficial partnerships. And then what I do is I take all the learnings from working with corporates and I put that into the non-profit training. And most recently with Georgia, we built a new business called BePartnerReady.com. Well, it's not new really anymore. It's in its 4th year. And that's an online training program that helps change makers to become partner ready as distinct from organizationally ready. But before I dive into the readiness, I'd like to share with you 3 very important distinctions. 4, actually. I've added one. The first thing is corporates are not cash cows. One of the most valuable things a corporate can give you is, of course, money. But if you just see them as a line item in the budget, you're going to miss out on some incredible opportunities. And if you pitch to them and just talk about money, it's not very attractive for them, because you're just another charity with their hand outstretched. And to be honest with you, they're getting a bit sick of it. They get frustrated because charities also don't do enough research. There are 7 things that a corporate can give you beyond money. And we're going to share that with you in an infographic called the 7 Benefits of the Corporate Partnership.
Beautiful. And this is actually a really good infographic for you to share to anyone internally, especially sometimes board members, just to help educate them. Because, you know, something that I often hear when I talk to charities who are considering corporates is that when they speak of their board, they often don't think beyond just dollars, and they think that that's all that a corporate partnership is, right? It's just that money that you need to do what you do. But they're missing out on some of the other bigger, much more lucrative, I believe, opportunities, such as reaching a mass market or getting a message out there that can change behavior. And one of the fantastic examples of that Hals and I often cite, and for those in Australia, you would probably be familiar with this, is KitKat partnered with Are You OK and put their messaging. I actually had one in my office, but I think it got eaten. And they had it all plastered, Are You OK, right on the front of the pack. And that went in early COVID. They began doing that. And I think the message spread to over 7 million packs in the first year, and it's only grown since then. It's a really good example. So I'll send that infographic in the follow-up.
Awesome. So corporates love to solve problems. So it's really important that nonprofits get really clear on what problem they're solving, as well as the solution, but most nonprofits tend to go straight to solution. And you invite the corporate to partner with you to help solve that problem. That is a much more compelling proposition for a corporate. And of course, there is a money exchange, but it's not the focus. Mandy and Caitlin, is there anything you'd like to say about that?
Sure. I was doing a pitch on Friday, and the organisation that we were pitching to, I guess, really reinforced that for me. One of the things they said was they don't want to just throw money at a charity. They want to partner with us, to have a mutually beneficial partnership. So yeah, I think that was really reinforced for me during that particular pitch. Yeah.
It's interesting, many nonprofits talk partnership, and yet when you see the materials that they're presenting to corporates, there's no partnership, there's no mutual exchange. It's just give us this and we'll spend it this way. Okay, so partnership is much more sophisticated. So over to Georgia on our third distinction,
which is that there's not just one purse, but four. And when it comes to the budget or purse holder, what we're talking about here is it's the areas within a corporate you can access for funding, but other things than that. And there's four potential areas that you can approach. And when you are talking to some of those really large companies, most of those organizations will have at least three, if not all four of these purses.
Yeah, and the critical thing about knowing the purse and the purse holder is that will give you an idea of what it is that they want from you. And that's a really good thing to know, because if you know roughly what they're going to want from you, you can lead the conversation in that direction. So the four purses are the human resources purse, the philanthropic purse, the CSR purse, and the marketing purse. Now, obviously, the human resources purse is all about people, and it's generally about staff engagement, which is a very time-intensive purse. It's normally about volunteering. So we often recommend to our students that if you're going to do this, do it with organisations that are already funding you. So offer it as a value add, because it does take up a lot of time and there often isn't a great deal of money in it for you. The philanthropic purse, there might be a big chunk of money in there, but it's very rare for a foundation within a company to give all of that money to one partner. They'll often slice it up into small grants. And you know how to pitch to that purse. So the HR purse and the philanthropic purse are really not two that we focus on. We focus on the two biggest purses because we believe this is where the biggest opportunity is. It's the corporate social responsibility purse and the marketing purse. The CSR purse is rapidly growing and the marketing purse is the biggest, and it always has been. We do have an infographic that we're going to share with you. I think we've got that on the next slide. There you go. And it details the language that each purse holder uses, the kinds of things that they would want from you, so that when you go to a company and you understand, if you look at their job title, you'll know exactly what they want from you, and you can actually use the right language. So things like ask, you know, the term ask, which a lot of fundraisers use, that is not a word that I would ever use in a partnership exchange. And if you talk to a marketer about ask, they're going to just shake their head, because it's not about that for them. It's about differentiation. It's about increasing sales. It's about reaching a particular target market. Gee.
So the fourth distinction that we want to make today is that there are 2 levels of readiness. If you want to flip to the next slide, Hales. We're going to dive deep into these in a moment, but the 2 that you need to know about is partner readiness and organisational readiness.
Great. So before we dive in, I want to touch on the 3 reasons why nonprofits fail at corporate partnerships. Number 1, they're not ready. They're organisationally not ready, and then they're not actually partner ready. They're not set up to have conversations with corporates for mutual benefit. They approach at the wrong time. Would anyone like to give sort of a guess and tell us when you think the right time is? I'm talking about a calendar time, so time of year. Would anyone like to have a guess? You can either put it in the chat box or you can come off mute. There is a particular time of year that is the most opportune time to go.
So before they're actually rolling out their budgets. So it depends on which company. Well, it depends. Like I was speaking to one the other day, and theirs is actual April. So
yes. So are you in New Zealand, Alina, or Queensland? You're Queensland.
I'm in the sunny Gold Coast.
Right. Okay. So you're absolutely right, Alina. It is when they're considering their budgets. It's not when they're rolling it out or spending it. That's too late. So if you want a paltry $5,000 or $10,000 for a sponsorship, there's always a little bit slopping around. I call it crumbs. If you want a big slice of the cake, $100,000 or more, you have to be in front of a company when they're talking about how to spend their budget to achieve objectives. Now, there are some weird ones that don't operate within this, but generally, and there's no website that will confirm this. This is based on 28 years of experience. About 75% of companies who operate in Australia will operate on a July-June calendar year. So the best time to pitch to those is February, March. If you go in April, May, it's too late. The budget will already be set for that following financial year. Then you've got about 10% that operate on a calendar year. So these are the global companies that operate in Australia. So if it's a Nestle or a Unilever, they're going to be operating on that calendar year. Then you've got a few odd ones. A couple of banks operate on an October. And then in New Zealand, they've got another time of year, which is March. So yes, you do need to know ahead of time what their financial year is, but you can kind of guess before you start doing that research. And going in at the right time is critical. So we see so many people get all of their ducks in a row. They do all the work to get ready, and then they go when the board tell them to go, or they're under pressure from the board to get a result, and they start knocking on doors and then wonder why they just get ignored. Because a corporate's not going to waste time meeting with you if they've got no budget, because they can see that you're a charity. They know that you're going to want some money. And if they don't have any, they won't even bother to respond. So timing is critical. Gee.
Beautiful. So the third reason that we find that nonprofits fail in partnerships is they take the easy, hard route. Now, this is a Haleyism. There's plenty of these that I have now learned since working with you over the last 4 years. But what I mean by this is that there are kind of 2 different ways to get ready for partnering. The easy, hard way, which is you slap a few slides together, ask the board who they know, and you begin to make approaches. It's an easy way to kind of begin with, but then it becomes a real hard slog, because once you potentially get a meeting, even if you might not, you're unlikely to get a second one beyond that, or get them across the line in that first meeting, because you don't really know what you have to offer. You haven't done the research on the company to know what they may be seeking. And you just end up in this very long, protracted dance, with a corporate putting in a proposal after proposal to try and meet their needs. And it can become really, really frustrating. The second way is the real world way, and this is the hard, easy way. So this is when you do the work, the necessary preparation, you research the companies, you put values on your brands, on the assets you might be able to offer a potential partner, and then you pull that into a very compelling PowerPoint presentation. You then, as we mentioned before, wait until the right time, and things beyond that seem to go relatively fast and often quite easy. So because you've done all of this preparatory work and you've done all the thinking, once you actually have that first conversation with a potential partner, you're able to get them across the line much easier than the first approach that I mentioned before. I wonder if Mandy or Caitlin, you have anything to add about this approach?
I do, but I don't want to leave Caitlin out. Caitlin, do you want to say anything?
No, I know
No?
you do. So I want to hear yours first, and then yes, I'll add after.
Okay. Yeah, I've found this is quite a hard lesson to learn, I think, but so important. Again, the pitch I did on Friday really reinforced this to me, because all the research had paid off from knowing exactly what time to go to them. She literally said, I'm working on budgets right now. You've got your timing absolutely perfect. Things that I had pulled out that align with our organisation, right down to one of their key values. Again, she said, you absolutely nailed that. We're all about collaboration. So it was all, again, just reinforced the importance of us being ready, but also the research that we'd done into that organisation. And it is a lot of work, but it is so worthwhile. And I was thinking about it this morning, and I thought, sometimes, as we've had a few organizations come back and say thanks, but we're not in the position to consider a partnership at the moment, my first thought is, but all that time we put into researching them and crafting the perfect email. But then I thought of that saying, sometimes you've got to kiss a lot of frogs to find the prince. And that kind of summed it up for me. Yes, we've put in lots of time to researching some organisations that may not be in a position or want to continue that conversation. But when we hit the right partner, it absolutely pays off. So that hard work is definitely worth it.
Caitlin?
Oh, Mandy, I'm so excited to hear that that's where things are at for you, and completely agree with what you're saying. I think I'm here because unlike Save the Children New Zealand, Soundfair was probably not ready from an organisational perspective when we approached this training. And while stepping into corporate partnerships was part of our strategy, it made me reflect the whole way along that actually we needed to do more work ourselves to make this a much more seamless and successful strategy. And so a good example would be that, we had a few bites, a few companies come to us and indicate an interest in partnerships. And I basically just didn't know, we weren't sort of ready to have that conversation in a really targeted and considered way. And so it sort of petered out, and then they'd come back, I reflect now, I'm like, wow, they were so keen, but we just couldn't land it because of our side, not because of them. And, they've been very generous really with their time, because over several years, it's been, actually, this is the right time of year to talk to us. Why don't we talk then? And the next thing is, we chose that other partner then for these reasons, that's what we would be looking for. All of these signs of what should have and does come out if you do the research yourself. I would have known all of those things before even having a conversation. So it really resonated with me, this idea that it's on you, get your ducks in order, and everything can work much more seamlessly.
Brilliant. Thanks, Caitlin. So let's talk about partner readiness very quickly. So as I said before, there's organizational readiness, which we're going to focus on today, and then there's partner readiness. So Be Partner Ready helps you to become partner ready. This is our robust, tried and tested 7-step formula that will get you to the finish line. So that's the bepartnerready.com program, and Georgia is going to share the infographic with you that takes you through the 7 steps. So as part of the resources that you'll get, you'll see those 7 steps that both Caitlin and Mandy have been through. So they help you become partner ready, and it includes things like valuing your brand, so that if you're talking to a company that wants to borrow your brand in a public sort of relationship, so brand aligned partnership or cause related marketing, you know the minimum guarantee that you can ask for in that relationship before you hand over your very valuable brand. It helps you to value your assets. It helps you to develop a really compelling credentials presentation. All of those things that get you partner ready. We've actually got a webinar about this as well, so you're very welcome to attend. It's on the 11th of October, and that's all about those 7 steps. But let's dive into organizational readiness first of all. So there are 7 organizational readiness factors that can prohibit or promote success. The first thing is lack of clarity around your brand. And this isn't just about having, your brand character or your brand architecture. This is being really clear on what is unique about your brand, your organization. What's your core message? What problem are you solving? What stories do you have that articulate that? Not being clear on your intention. So basically, why do you want corporates? What is it that a corporate can do for you that can help you achieve your vision, mission, and purpose? Now, if you think about Mandy and Save the Children, they're not the only organisation working in the Pacific and working globally with disadvantaged communities, but Save the Children have very, very clear identity, and that really helps her to become, organisationally ready when she's talking to corporates. We actually do have another webinar coming up as part of this series on the 27th of September with Dan from Marlin, and he'll talk about brand proposition and brand value proposition. So you may want to have a look at that and attend that, because he'll dive into that. The second thing, over to G.
The second thing is that, often nonprofits are just not clear on what they have to offer to a potential partner. And as we said earlier, partnership implies mutual benefit and exchange of value from both parties, not just one. So they're not really clear on what they could offer, but also they're not clear on what they even want from corporates and corporate partnerships, or how they'd even spend that money if they were lucky enough to land a potential partner. So it's just that kind of clarity piece where you actually take a step back before you jump in and go, okay, why is this something in our strategy? What can we get from it and achieve for it? And if we do really want corporate partnerships, what are we going to offer them? So having that it's a real key factor that I often see, fall short time and time again with some of the charities I do speak to.
The third thing is a confused management and board. So the board and management don't understand the complexities involved. They don't realise that it's a long-term strategy requiring at least 18 months of investment in time and money, and they'll often think it's just about money. Sometimes I genuinely think that board members think that money just grows on trees and all you need to do is go and shake that tree. It just doesn't work like that. And it's really sad because we often see management actually set people up to fail. I had a call with a student only a couple of days ago who was given 3 months to secure a corporate partner, and she'd only just started. And she just wasn't given the necessary time to get her ducks in a row and do the necessary research to actually be successful. So board education is critical, and many of the infographics that we share with you today are really good, conversation tools. Caitlin, you've got something to say about this.
I don't think I realized quite how important this is early on. And I'm in the fortunate and unfortunate position of having a very small organization where I'm the CEO, but was also the partnerships person and everything. And so it meant that I had kind of not many people to get aligned if things wanted to happen, which was fantastic. But it also meant that I didn't have many other people to sort of back me up when talking to the board or to sort of walk them through changing their views. I had several people on my board who had experience in background in marketing and comms or brand kind of space, and they had very strong views on what partnerships might look like and brand valuation, things like that. And they just wanted to direct how the strategy should be implemented. So it was really helpful to have a structure that I could take to them and just be like, this is what we're doing, this is why, so that it didn't just become the board's opinion on how it should be done or who we should be talking to.
Yeah, awesome. Thanks, Caitlin. So, federated. Are any of you online today working for a federated organisation? If you're not, then that's awesome, because federated is a pain in the bum, to be honest with you. Some federated organisations do have unity where they all share resources and they're all on the same page, but many are just operating like individual organisations. And that doesn't really work when it comes to corporates, because most corporates with the big dollars are national, and they want to work with one organisation that's going to resonate with all of their employees and all of their customers across Australia. So if an organisation is federated, it needs to have unity and it needs to have a single proposition to national companies, and ideally one team presenting to corporates for the whole of the organisation. The next one is they're in the midst of organisational change. So this often involves a strategic review. So the direction or the focus of the organisation is about to change. This happened a lot, obviously, during COVID. They're either going to change their name or a rebrand. And for some reason, they've got corporate partnerships right in the middle of that strategy. And we say to people in that position, this is not the right time to be talking to corporates, because again, it's about clarity of mission. It's about knowing what you have to offer. It's about offering your brand if an organisation wants to borrow your brand. And if that brand's changing, it's not a good idea to offer something that's going to change. So if you're in the midst of some kind of change, it's probably not a good time to be pursuing or approaching corporates. Georgia.
The sixth factor is there being a lack of trained people, but also resources. So in some organizations, and especially charity budgets are often quite small. So the budget there to potentially upskill their people doesn't exist, or they don't provide the space or the resources for that to happen. So, often when you work in charities, I'm sure many of you online today would be wearing not one, but probably 500 hats within your organization and doing a myriad of things. So it just really weakens your approach and your strategy when it comes to corporate partnerships, because you don't have the space or time to dedicate to it, and it's a long-term investment. And as we've said today, it does take time, especially when you want to secure those big partners. The other thing that I have seen happen quite a bit before is that they'll bring in a consultant to do all the work, but then once that consultant leaves, so does the knowledge. So the organization, okay, they might have secured a partner or some kind of partner in that process, but they don't have the ability to go out and secure any others because all that knowledge is left when the consultants left. The other thing that I've often seen as well, and I'd be interested to hear in the chat if anyone's in this position, but often corporate partnerships can get given to someone that's working in the events section of their organization, which I mean, I did this when I worked for a charity. Events were a freaking nightmare. They take up so much time, and okay, they can be quite valuable. But if you're trying to run, a myriad of events within a year and do something like corporate partnerships, it's just a complete waste of time, because you don't have the ability unless you clone yourself. So it is a big factor that needs to be considered before embarking on corporate partnerships. Do you have the people or do you have the time and resourcing?
Thanks, G. And the final one is about mindset. It's about having an attitude of abundance, having a long-term view, having an inspiring and compelling vision, and having a real go-get attitude as well. So there's a lot of science around mindset, particularly around abundance versus scarcity, but we do hear this a lot from the non-profit sector. They say, oh, why would a corporate want to partner with us? And, it's all right for them. They've got, fluffy puppies and they're much more attractive than we are. We're just cancer research. I believe there's a cause for every company and there's a company for every cause. So it's really about having that attitude of abundance and knowing that what you have is valuable. So those are the 7 key things that we see that trip up nonprofits when considering starting a corporate partnership strategy. Over to you, G.
Thanks, Hales. So there is a really simple way for you to actually determine where your organisation sits in the readiness factor here, which is using our free tool, which is a readiness Q&A. And I know a couple of you online today have actually done this. And I'd love to open up the conversation with Mandy and Caitlin to see how you found it when you would have done it a little while ago now. But it's something that gives you a score on where you are at organisationally and how ready you are to, go out and start getting partner ready and have those conversations with corporates. But what I've found and what I've heard from people that have done it is that it's actually a really great conversation starter to have internally with management and board. But please, I'd love Caitlin or Mandy to let me know what you thought about it when you would have conducted this sort of Q&A.
For me, Georgia, what you just said was bang on. It was a really good conversation starter and indicator to our management team and board that, yes, we were ready. We'd kind of been talking about corporate partnerships for a couple of years and kind of saying, well, I think the time might be now, maybe, but that was just going by feeling, really, and having had a couple of corporates approach us. But to have something so clear and detailed, to then be able to take that to our board and management team and say, we are ready as an organization. That was so helpful. And I think without having done that, I don't know that the board would have agreed to then continuing on with the Be Partner Ready program. And the other thing for me was that it started me thinking about some things that I hadn't ever thought about, really, in terms of things we've talked about, the timing of when to approach people, what we actually have to offer a company. Because like, as you were just saying, Georgia, like many charities was thinking, oh, I don't know what we have to offer. We don't have kids that they can just go and hang out with or anything like that. So it really started that thinking. And then doing the program, you just see how everything aligns so well. So yeah, for me, it was really important and critical for us to see that readiness. And we did score highly as an organisation, just, showing that we were ready to go down the Be Partner Ready journey.
So what about you, Caitlin? So do you remember your score? You probably don't remember.
I don't remember the number, but I remember that it was yellow.
We've lost you. Can you hear
Amber.
Caitlin?
And
back?
I could, I'm back.
Yeah.
I don't know what you heard. Sorry, I don't remember the number score, but I remember that it was ready with some work somewhere sort of in the middle of the.
Yeah, you probably got an amber score. So it looks like Caitlin's having
Really
some.
ready, which because it showed. Sorry, keep dropping out. You live in the hills.
Well, we're in the hills as well, so
Yeah.
it's obviously between the two of us.
We're in an amber score, and that was right. And on reflection, more time. I should have put more time into reflecting on: did we have the capacity to do the work that was needed, alongside actually doing the program to get things to where we were ready.
Yep.
And so while it wasn't, we're at the point of this isn't even worth doing, it definitely it was a really good indicator that, you know, you need to be sorting this stuff out as a priority if you're going to get the most out of approaching partnerships.
Great. Good to hear that. So our readiness Q&A, it's completely free. It takes about 10 minutes. It does ask you quite a lot of questions, so it'll make you think. So, you know, put the time aside to do it, and you'll get a score out of 100, and it'll be ranked not ready, ready with some work, and then absolutely ready to go. And we do offer anyone who does the Q&A a call with us to discuss those elements. So if you haven't done the readiness Q&A, I strongly urge you to do so, and you'll get the actual results through, so that you can go and have a chat with people within your organisation. So that pretty much wraps up what we have to say about readiness. So I'd now like to hand over to any of our guests for questions.